Welcome to this webinar on innovation and intellectual property rights, where India stands, hosted by Mar Gregorius College of Law. Mar Vanis Vidyanagar is an educational campus emerged out of the educational vision of the Siro-Malangara Catholic Church in the state of Kerala. This sprawling 130 acres campus, blessed with natural beauty and learning ambience, is studded with 17 centers of excellence in education, with Mar Gregorius College being one of them. Our institution, established in 2012, has now over 800 students and offers 5 different programs, which include BA LLB, BBA LLB, BCom LLB, LLM, and PG Diploma in Human Rights. It is now conceived as a new generation law school comparable to any other leading law school in the country. It is a proud holder of Sylph Millard Institutional Excellence Award received in 2017. We are happy to have among us our distinguished speaker, Mr. Mathews P. George, who is specializing in intellectual law practice, intellectual property law practice. Sir, we are more than honored to have you among us. I extend a hearty welcome from all of us, sir.
Thank you.
I'd now like to invite our director, Reverend Dr. Koshi Isaac Punnamotal, to welcome all.
Distinguished faculty members and dear participants of this webinar, a very good morning to all. This is the third webinar from Mar Gregorius College of Law family. The first national webinar was held in the month of June on the theme, The Many Roads to Success, Professional Avenues After Law. It was led by Mr. Sudmil Verma, Deputy Manager of Power Grid Corporation of India. The second national webinar was held in the month of August on the theme, The Philosophy of International Aviation Law. And this was led by Professor Dr. S.S. Srijit, Professor and Dean at O.P. Jindal Global Law School, Haryana. In fact, both these two webinars were very fruitful and beneficial to all participants. Now I would like to welcome you all to this third international webinar on the theme Innovation and IPR, where India stands. Now let me introduce the main speaker of this session, who is none other than Mr. Mathews P. George. He is a graduate of National University of Juridical Sciences, Kolkata. His interest in intellectual property was kindled when he bagged the second position in his second year law school, the prestigious Nani Palkiwala essay competition on intellectual property. He was also involved in various research and policy initiatives relating to intellectual property. He has done his LLM in intellectual property and competition law from Munich Intellectual Property Law Center, which is jointly run by Max Planck Institute for Innovation and Competition, University of Augsburg, Technical University of Munich, and George Washington University, Washington. Currently, he resides in Munich, in Germany, and works in a law firm there. We are privileged to have such a wonderful personality for this session. Dear Mathews, on behalf of the entire Mar Gregorius Law College family, I extend you a warm welcome to this webinar.
Thank you, Father.
I welcome all faculty members and other participants from various law colleges in and out of Kerala to this webinar. And I wish you all a fruitful webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Just a reminder, all of you are invited to put in your questions along with the name of your college and the year to which you belong in the chat box, and the same will be addressed by the speaker during the course of the session. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Mathews P. George to take over the session. Over to you, sir.
First of all, thank you all for this wonderful introduction. So as Achin said, as Father said, I graduated from NUJS in 2011, and right now I am in Munich. I'm working with a law firm. So now I would like to see this as a general talk, because I understand that both lawyers and non-lawyers are present in this. So I will not, as much as I can, I will not be making it technical, but I will share my views on the innovation ecosystem in India from what I have seen, and also from my experiences when I associated with late Professor Shamnath, who was my professor in law school. So as like any other person, I may also be bringing a set of my prejudices, my biases, and whatever. That's all. That will be there. But what I intend to do from this talk, by this talk, is to place before you certain thoughts so that you can think about them. And if they are acceptable, take them or leave them. Now, getting into the topic, what is innovation? I don't want to go into a technical definition, but for me, I see it as being creative. And you can be creative in myriad areas of your life. You can be creative in administration, in cooking, in various areas. So it's basically having a creative mindset to come up with something new. Now, coming to this topic, I'm more interested into the innovation ecosystem. The linkage between innovation ecosystem and IP, intellectual property rights. So intellectual property rights are basically intangible property rights. We have when we buy a land, we have title over a property over a land. It's a tangible property. We have ownership over a car, it is a tangible property. But intellectual property rights are basically intangible properties. In this regard, I'm mostly concerned with the innovation, with the invention part of it. Now let us look. Let us look into the. Let us come into the Indian ecosystem, and let me share my thoughts on this. The innovation ecosystem in India, when we approach it, it has to be divided into two sectors. One is the formal sector innovation ecosystem, and the other is the informal sector innovation ecosystem. This is not much research has been done into this aspect. Professor Shamnath was deeply concerned about it. He did a lot of work on it. He submitted the draft IP policy to the government of India, which was unfortunately rejected. So I have asked the organizers to share this report with you. Now let me come into the formal sector, and then I will get into the informal sector. And here I will be basically sharing my views. I will be touching upon other jurisdictions. So basically, it is kind of a project of decluttering the present scenario, the present reality as it is. So I believe that if you want to solve a problem, what is the first step? The first step is to identify the problem, accept the problem as it is, and then come up with solutions. Of course, in this talk, I cannot come up with all solutions because there are a lot of policy considerations in this regard, but I can place some thoughts before you. Now, let me ask you, when you something, take this latest corona situation. We are talking about vaccines developed by other countries. There is a project going on in India, but as of now, you see active trials. As far as active trials are concerned, there is no as such a feasible vaccine from India. We are talking about vaccine developed by Oxford, by Russia. Is this a coincidence? No, it's not a coincidence. We have a robust generic pharmaceutical sector, but unfortunately, we have not come up with any new drug, and it's not. It has been happening for a while. And take any sector, say cancer or any other HIV, we are good at reverse engineering the pharmaceutical products. This is something which we call the generic pharmaceutical industry. Why are we not coming up with a new drug? In this regard, we have to go back and see how the Indian patent system is. I mean, I'll give a brief background. When India became independent, we inherited the British system. So we had a patent system which was basically designed by the British then. Then it's in 1970 that, based on Iyengar committee report, we changed our patent act. So we basically brought in the process patent system. Now, what is this process patent system? There are two kinds of patents: product and process patents. Now, what I'm stating is not a perfect example, but just to convey the point. So there are different ways of making sambar, right? So just consider sambar as one product. Now in North Kerala, people use dry coconut for making sambar. So that is one method for making sambar. In the southern Kerala, they don't use dry coconut for making sambar. So that is another way of making the sambar. So a process patent is where you patent that particular process for making the sambar. For example, say if you have a process patent over the northern Kerala method of making sambar, you can preclude all others from using the northern Kerala sambar making method. So that means if you have a process patent of a northern Kerala sambar method, people can make the sambar using the southern Kerala method, no problem, legally no issues with it. So this is basically the process patent. But say you have a patent of a sambar as such, which is the product, then you can preclude everybody from making that sambar. So it doesn't matter if you are making sambar through northern Kerala or southern Kerala method, you cannot simply make the sambar. That is the product patent. Now, Iyengar was a visionary, and it's a well-researched topic, a well-researched report. And based on that, we had a process patent from 1970 to 2005. In 2005, because of the WTO commitments, we had to change our system to bring in the product patent system. Now, this process patent system helped the Indian pharmaceutical sector to grow, and it was a deliberate, conscious decision. Well, good, because if you look at any country in this world, I mean any developed country in this world, at one point of time, they had a weak patent system, weak IPR system. When I said weak IPR system, just understand that it was that the system was such that they were making it easier for others to imitate, to copy the inventions. It was a deliberate decision. You look at Japanese initially had a weak system, so that they basically the idea was to award as less number of patents as possible. So look at European countries, French or Germany, US, even US in its initial phases. So this is the natural way of growing. That's fine. Initially, you calibrate the system in such a way that the number of patents which can be awarded are less. Why? Because patents are basically, in general terms, you're giving a monopoly to somebody. You're giving an exclusive right. When you look into technicality, there is a distinction between exclusive right and monopoly. I am not getting into all those things. All I'm saying is you're basically disallowing somebody to use that product, to make that product for 20 years. So it's kind of a monopoly. So if you start giving monopoly to everyone, then you see it will be difficult, and especially when the economy is in the initial stages of growth. So this was a conscious decision taken by almost all developed countries in the initial phases, and India also rightly did that. Because before 1970, we had more of a product patent system. What was it? It was of no use because Indian economy was still in its initial phases. This will not have any result, because remember one thing, this is where Shamnath had worked a lot. IP is only a means to an end. It is not an end by itself. So just because you have a strong patent system, it doesn't mean that it will result in a strong innovation ecosystem. It is only one among the many things which will incentivize innovation. So you have to get it right, because these are things where the multinational company, there are a lot of vested interests in this. They will want a strong patent system, but others don't. But we have to get this clear. This is something which is very fundamental. IP is only a means to an end. It is not an end by itself. So in 1970, we took the conscious decision of having the process patent system. This resulted in the growth of Indian pharmaceutical sector, basically the generic pharmaceutical sector. Now, what do these generic pharmaceutical sector, what does it do? So once a patent expires or it nears its term, they kind of reverse engineer and come up with the drug. So they can offer this medicine at a cheap cost. Why? Because first of all, they are not incurring research and development costs. And secondly, they are not incurring the cost relating to clinical trials, which is very expensive. So if a company has to come up with a new drug on its own, it has to go through a series of failures. It's not that we suddenly go to a market and scientists suddenly come up with a drug which works. That's not the case. There will be a series of failures, and out of that, maybe out of 1,000 failures, there will be 1 or 2 drugs which will work. And then it has to go through clinical trials. It takes time. It means a lot of money. But a general pharmaceutical company does not have to go through all these things, because the product is already there. They have to reverse engineer, and then they will not be incurring much cost on clinical trials as well, because clinical trials were already done before. So well and good, so that's how the Indian generic pharmaceutical sector grew, and it grew very fast. And I think as Indians, we can proudly say that to a great extent, it helped to avert the HIV crisis in Africa. When the HIV crisis went beyond all levels, acceptable levels in Africa, people were simply dying. That meant the destruction of the company of these countries. And the US pharmaceutical companies were reluctant to offer the medicines at a cheaper price, because that would affect their prices in other areas. You see, it's all at the end of the day money and business. At that time, the Indian pharmaceutical sector, general pharmaceutical sector, mostly companies like Cipla stepped in and offered the ARV drugs at a very cheap price. So it basically helped these African countries to get back on track. So well, all good. But the thing is, our pharmaceutical sector has not grown beyond this stage. I mean, you be at a kindergarten, then you get into UP school, high school, higher secondary, graduation, right? The Indian pharmaceutical sector has remained as generic pharmaceutical sector. It has not grown beyond that, because it's already making a good amount of money. So the question is, why should we get into that area of uncertainty? Because as I said earlier, to come up with a new drug is not an easy thing. It involves a lot of money, a lot of time, so it's a mostly business decision, but basically because of the factors existing in India. The general pharmaceutical sector played a key role of when we were calibrating our patentability standards, and also in 2005. When India moved to a product patent system, we had no option because we had to comply with the WTO commitment. When we moved into the product patent system, we kept the patent threshold very high. So basically in India, I mean, in blunt terms, getting a patent is difficult because there are a lot of, the legal standards are quite high, section 3D and whatever, and they were all because we did not want too many patents in the system. That was a conscious policy decision, and so we could not simply handle so many patents, and also because the generic pharmaceutical sector was heavily concerned, because for the growth of generic pharmaceutical sector, it is very important that not many patents are granted, right? Because they are working on reverse engineering, so it will affect their business. Well, good. I mean, I'm saying when TRIPS gives us enough flexibilities, the WTO agreement gives us enough flexibilities, and we should take into account our national interest, and we should calibrate the patentability standards according to our national interest. There's nothing wrong with that, and I have no qualms with that. But my issue is, fine, we have a robust generic pharmaceutical sector, but why are we not graduating to the next phase? It cannot be the case that we always reverse engineer, right? Our business should not be always, taking a car and then, looking as to how that is made and then doing this reverse engineering thing. We should be coming up with new drugs, new pharmaceutical products. So to some extent, I will say this high patentability standard, which we have prescribed by law, has brought in a sense of complacency. The system goes like this, and then there are already quite a few vested interests. It's not that easy to change the system. So my take on this is, and as even Shamnath had written about it, he said that, see, look, when we are calibrating our legal standards, these are not fixed standards forever. As and when the time comes, based on the necessities, we should calibrate and recalibrate. So that is something which is absent in India. Once a law is made, a standard is made, it remains tends to be like remaining forever, which is not good. That is also because we don't have data. If you look at Indian policy making, we don't have a system where we collect good quality data. Data is apolitical. It has no religion, caste, creed, color. It helps us to identify the problems as they are, and then prescribe solutions. When you go to a doctor, what is the first step? First step is to diagnose the problem, right? What is your disease? Unless you make the right diagnosis, you cannot prescribe the right medicine. Same thing here. The Indian policy making, cutting across all levels, it's not just relating to IPR, but cutting across the board. You talk to these people, who are working in this, getting data is very difficult. Just to illustrate, I had to here when I'm in Munich, I had to give an opinion on Commercial Courts Act in India. Getting data is very difficult. Getting quality data, you get into the judiciary, find the details, data, how many cases. It's all, there is no proper system to collect data systematically, and because of which you will never diagnose the right problems. I'll get into that later, but this is one problem which we are facing. So I already talked about the pharmaceutical sector, and I conveyed the point that it is not innovative enough. In my terms, I'll say it is not innovative enough, and it has been for too long that I think there is a sense of complacency in this, and it is definitely not good, because if you see the statements of the current political leadership in India, it wants to make it a $5 trillion US dollars GDP by 2024, which I would only term it as a chimera. It will never happen unless and until we make it into a knowledge-based economy. And why do I say that a knowledge-based economy is important, and that is connected to innovation? I will come to that. When a country is at the top of the value chain, I mean the innovation value chain, it benefits the most. When the country's position is in the bottom, or say in the middle of the value chain, proportionately the benefit it gets will be lesser. Take the case of automobile sector. Now you see this country where I am living in right now. It is at the top of the value chain as far as the automobile industry is concerned. it has Audi, Volkswagen, Porsche, BMW. It is at the top of the value chain. So a country which is at the top of the value chain will benefit the most from that sector. India in the pharmaceutical sector, it is not at the top of the value chain. It is either at the middle or at the bottom of the value chain. Now, let me give you another example as well. Take the case of telecommunications sector. India is the second largest telecommunications economy in the world. Why? Because it's a huge population, right? Once a company gets access to India, it is getting access to 125 crores of people. So a huge economy. So it's the second largest economy. We have all the good figures. But with the mobile phones which are using, it carries a lot. It carries a lot of standard essential patents. That's something which I am working on. Standard essential patents. I don't want to get into technicalities, but let me just give you an example. Take the case of the USB cord, the pen drive. Wherever you go in India or abroad, you can plug your USB cord, the pen drive. It is because it is using the same standard across the world. Like that, there are certain standards which are set by the standard setting organizations. So you have to use these kinds of patents across the globe because it needs to be compatible, right? It's not that when you use a mobile phone in India, it works, and when you go to Germany or UK, it doesn't work. It should not happen like that. So there is something called standards, and the related patents are called standard essential patents. Now, as I said earlier, India is the second largest economy. I mean, all these companies want India, lot of mobile phones and everything. But you know what? This technology doesn't come from India. I mean, the standard essential patents are basically the technology comes from US, Europe, and all other countries. Now even Chinese are catching up. But all these countries, I must say, they want India. I mean, in informal dialogues here, I try to push our country's case because of course, this is our country, but India is my country. But the thing is, what I understood, the rude reality is that everybody wants India as a market because it's a huge population, but nobody wants to build technology in India. Even the Chinese are catching up. Chinese are building technologies. Take the case of Zoom and other things. They are being innovative, and they have. I got an opportunity to make a submission to the Chinese Supreme Court on IPR. Whether we agree with or not, it's a different thing. But I was quite surprised and even impressed with the level of thinking at their end. See, look, they are thinking about these things. I mean, whether I agree with it or not is a different thing altogether. But they are thinking about these things. They are aware that the fourth industrial revolution is on. They are making endeavors to make it into a knowledge-based economy. They are recalibrating their systems. But in India's case, it's nothing happens. It's very difficult. When in informal conversations, when I deal with people who are in the senior management of various companies, I can see a sense of frustration. It's because it's difficult considering the problems they are facing. But they all want business in India. So, but you see what I'm trying to convey. The thing is, India is an attractive market, but unfortunately, we are not at the top of the value chain in both these vital sectors, pharmaceuticals and telecommunications. We are either at the bottom or at the middle. So there is a need to calibrate and recalibrate our system. We should really see what is the problem. What are the problems? There are a lot of issues, and as I said earlier, IP is just a means to an end. It is not an end by itself. Just because we are calibrating or recalibrating our system, it doesn't mean that from tomorrow onwards, India is going to be a knowledge-based economy. That is not the case. But it is definitely one among the factors for incentivizing innovation. And once this talk is over, I'll encourage you to go through Professor Thomas Duffy's works. He's a professor based in US. So he has written a lot on theoretical and economic foundations of IP. So this is something we just agreed across the board, that if we really need a knowledge-based economy, a thriving IP-based or any other the innovation ecosystem, it's very important that you lay the right foundation. So take all these developed countries, say Germany or US, UK for that matter, they all have invested in pure science research. So that forms the foundation. Once that foundation is formed, then you are creating a conducive environment for the growth of the private sector, the other institutions. Again, that is something where India is lacking a lot. The level of investment in terms of research, in terms of the public investment, the financial, and even attracting the talent to the best institutions is something which is missing. We are also missing on good social science institutions. The institution where I was early attached to, the Max Planck, they do a lot of research on upcoming technologies, how law should be framed, what are the policy considerations, and of course you cannot expect these institutions to factor in India's interests, right? They will be concerned about Europe. Each institution in a country will be concerned about their country or that region. So that is again another thing. In India, we do not have that foundation which can act as a check and a balance to the policy making. Policy making should not be something which just happens in Delhi by some bureaucrats. It should be something which should be done by where policymakers and academicians should come together. In India, the linkage amongst practice of law, academics, and policy making is quite fragile. That is adding to the problem, because we are not able to guide the policy making and the law making in the right context and spirit. So this is one opinion that I would like to share. And when the next thing is now coming to since I was talking about patents, again, not much, just to convey a point, not much work has been done in this regard. Shamnath had written a bit about this, but I haven't seen many Indian academicians or authors who have written on this. The quality of patents in India is something which is still dubious. Why do I say that? There are a lot of institutional problems. Even Shamnath we have gone public on the corruption, on the lack of expertise with patent examiners and all. Because if quality patents are not issued, this will affect the whole system, because as I said earlier, you're basically giving an exclusive right of 20 years. So if the quality has to be maintained, and for the SMEs and for the startups, patents act as an attractive tool for getting investments. So if the patent that a SME or a startup has is of dubious quality, that will affect the funding. I mean, venture capital funds won't be interested. This is another problem which you see. Once you draw the kind of analyze the whole system, you can see that this is a vicious cycle. How to break it and how to do it is something, break it and prescribe the solutions is not which we can do in a 30 or 40 minutes talk, because as I stated earlier, this is something where there are a lot of vested interests. It is not easy to just bring in a policy change in India. There is a lot of deliberation which should go into this. And for that, as I stated earlier, we need quality data. Getting data, systematic quality data from India is very difficult. And it should not be the case if we are really serious about breaking the policy paralysis. And another thing is the informal sector innovation. See, this is again something which you will not find much in the literature coming from the developed economies, because they don't have much of an informal sector. But that is not the case with India. See, when we, I think I mentioned this earlier, the first step to solve any problem is to identify the problem as it is, accept the problem as it is, and then the second step is to prescribe solutions. Now, in India, we have the formal sector and the informal sector. So you will find people writing a lot about formal sector, but what about the informal sector? So it's not a case that India is a country without innovations in the informal sector. In fact, there are a lot of innovation. There is a lot of hidden talent in the Indian informal sector. I'll just like to draw your attention to one Mr. Arunachalam. So he's somebody who he was awarded Padma Shri in 2016, and then he's from Tamil Nadu. He's somebody who brought in the sanitary pad revolution in India. You can find his profile in online. I mean, it's quite impressive. You know, he's coming from a poor family, and when he got married, he saw his wife using rags and newspapers during the menstrual period, and that's when he got concerned and he started working on it. It took him a while. He understood that the multinational companies are using cellulose fibers obtained from pine wood pulp, and then he tried to come up with a machine. For that, he had to go through a lot of difficult times because this is something which is still a taboo. You cannot just talk about it. But he went through a lot of struggles, and then finally he came up with a machine. Now at a fraction of a cost, he has come up with a machine which can produce sanitary pads at a fraction of the cost. Now look at the impact it has. You are basically solving a problem which is just there, you know. So a person who is not formally educated is coming up with a solution to a live problem. That is also innovation. So this is something which we call in which we say the democratization of the innovation discourse. You're taking it to the grassroots. So the again, I would also like to mention Professor Anil Gupta, who retired from IIM Ahmedabad. He's somebody who has worked a lot on the innovation, on the informal innovation sector. So he has written a book on grassroots innovations. I liked the tagline of that book. It says that minds on the margins are not marginal minds. May I repeat? Minds on the margins are not marginal minds. So we have talent out there. If we really want to empower our people, we should also be talking about democratizing the innovation discourse. It's not be something which we discuss as maybe as part of champagne socialism or in the AC cubicles. This is something which we can take to the people. Empowerment of, if we are talking about empowerment at the grassroots level, we should also be talking about democratizing the innovation discourse. But now, coming to the legal angle, as I said earlier, getting patents in India is, in general terms, it's difficult because that is how the system has been designed to be. Now, this system may not be suiting our informal sector innovations. You see, I mean, from what I read from newspaper reports, Arunachalam obtained a patent. I don't know the details of it, but you cannot say it for sure unless the patent, if I don't know if the patent is challenged in court, whether it will stand the validity criterion, because as I said earlier, the quality of Indian patents is generally not that good. Generally, when you compare the quality of Indian patents with patents coming out of other countries, I'm talking about the examination process, the reasons given to it, the which will all matter when the validity of the patent is challenged in court of law. But because we have a patent system which has factored in only the considerations of the formal sector, we don't have a system in place to incentivize innovation of the informal sector. You see what I'm trying to say? First I talked about the formal sector, now I'm coming to the informal sector. Here I'm trying to argue that we don't have a system in place to incentivize innovations in the informal sector. So if we are talking about being a truly democratic country where empowerment of the masses really matter, we have to consider these aspects as well. Now, yeah, so now let me also just so I think now coming to the point of creating a quality human resource, let me also share a personal experience that I have. I have come across quite a few Chinese scholars who are doing PhDs in the top universities in Germany. So they're doing research in various areas, in law and policy, in pharmacology, in various areas. So I was once wondering why, how can these many people come in? I mean, because to pay money from your pocket, I mean, for 3 to 4 years is not that easy. Now, when I talk to them, there are two methods through which they come here. One is when they get a scholarship from the German government, and the second thing is by the scholarships given by the Chinese government. You see what they are trying to do. They are sending their best students abroad to learn and come back. So all these scholars, they have a plan of getting back to China after this. This is something, a food for thought. We can. There is a saying that the first step to win over an enemy is to. I mean, if we are considering, I don't want to take China as an enemy or something, but just for the sake of conveying a point, the first step to tackle an enemy is to respect the enemy, to see where they are going, see the kind of investments they are making in terms of, of cultivating a quality human resource. I already argued that it's not just not a matter of argument, it's a fact that China is going up in the value chain. They are getting to the top, and that can be seen. TikTok, we are talking about TikTok, we are talking about Zoom, all these technologies are Chinese. Xiaomi, Oppo, you see the mobile companies, OnePlus, these are all Chinese companies. And even the Philips, we have the Philips TVs, now they are owned by Chinese. They are going up in the value chain. And so China is not just an attractive market just because it's a good market. It is also becoming an attractive place because it is going up in the value chain. But India, when you compare India with China, all these companies who I am dealing with, they are all interested in India as a marketplace, not for building the technology. See, now what can we do about this? My humble suggestion is we should really sit back and deliberate about it. We can adopt this ostrich policy. What is the ostrich policy? Pretend that everything is fine and then go ahead. But then there is a saying, we stand where we sit. We are where we are now because of what we were before. So either we can improve the quality of our public discourse and look for a change, identify the problems as they are and prescribe solutions, or we can just pretend that everything is fine, but then we should not be expecting a miracle. Um, in an informal conversation, a friend of mine who is not an Indian, he told me that you Indians have the problem of believing too much in miracles. So though I got offended then, but it's actually a fact. If you are just going to believe in miracles and hoping that everything will be fine, we are that, for example, wishing that we are going to be a $5 trillion US GDP by 2024, when we are not even close to a knowledge-based economy, then we can, I don't know, it's a call we have to take. But as I said earlier, whether you accept my arguments or not, the fact remains that we stand where we sit. Now, this whole IP innovation, all this discourse should also be made part of democratic discourses. And democracy is not just about going to a poll station and voting. The John Dewey, he was the professor of Professor Ambedkar, Dr. Ambedkar in Columbia. He is regarded as one among the most highly respected philosophers of all times. His thesis on education and democracy is something which is still relevant and still studied upon. So he said that for democracy to thrive, you need autonomous thinking individuals. We need citizenry who can think, who can deliberate. So it's all about being eternally vigilant, to ask the right questions to the policymakers and to seek the right answers. Only if we ask the right questions, we will get the right answers. So the same thing applies to the innovation discourse as well. We are getting into a fourth industrial revolution where blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, all these things will define the world. But what are we doing about it? When I had to do some research, I'm not getting enough materials from India. When these places, they do research, they come up with papers, we are not talking about it. I mean, either academically or in our public discourse. So what will happen is, if we keep doing like this, is once the technology is built and when the framework is built, we will think about it, but that will be too late. So then we will have to toe the line of others. This has happened earlier, but should we allow it to happen again? We are now facing the corona crisis, and there is a saying that never waste a crisis. Are we thinking about the post-corona world, how technology is going to define the world, and how IP should be calibrated? How can we incentivize the innovation system? All these things, see, what I'm trying to say now, all these things which I'm placing before you, even if we execute it now, it will take about 15 to 20 years. These are long gestation projects. You cannot just do it and then expect a return in the next year. These are things which demands a lot of patience from our end. So what I'm talking about now is for the next generation, not about this generation, because 15, 20 years we will be old. But at least we should start a dialogue in this regard. Now, may I just place a request? When this talk is over, can all of you just sit back and think about these issues and just see whether these issues are discussed in our media, you just take the newspaper. Are these things being discussed on news channels, in social media? are we talking about this? These are highly relevant issues, because see, India has a huge demographic dividend. It is both an opportunity and at the same time this can lead to a disaster also. And these are this is a ticking time bomb if we don't address it now. India as of now is, in blunt terms, is either at the middle or at the bottom, mostly at the bottom of the value chain. Why I am saying it's in the middle, because it's in the middle as far as some sectors are concerned, but mostly we are at the bottom of the value chain. Can we just remain as a good market for these companies? One sector which we made investments and where our patients paid us is the space sector. Just look at the space sector, how the space sector grew in India. Initially, the government invested, there were some hue and cry, nothing was coming out of it, but there was patience. We cultivated, we invested on human resource, we have some good engineers, and now see where India is now. Now we are using the space technology for commercial activities. The same thing applies to other sectors. We build the foundation, and once the foundation is built, money will come in. We are generating employment. But this, we have succeeded in the space sector because I think we have done reasonably well in the space sector. But that cannot be the only sector, and that should not be the only sector where we are focusing. We need to focus on other areas as well. And in this regard, calibrating and recalibrating matters a lot. So once this talk is over, I request all of you to just sit back and then deliberate. Are we discussing these issues? Are we asking the right questions? Are we seeking the right answers? And I think that's when we perform the role of being a truly eternally vigilant citizenry in a democracy. And I just want to end my talk with a one-liner: we stand where we sit. It's a call we have to take. So yeah, that's it. I'll take questions now.
Thank you, sir. We have a few questions from the participants. The first one is, in India, with majority being under poverty, will patenting be beneficial for humankind? This question was put in by Serafina, 7th Sem, BA LLB from Margaret College of Law.
See, that's what I said. It's a yes and no. I mean, we need a patent system to incentivize innovations in the formal sector, but we cannot simply continue to be as we are right now. We need to go up in the value chain, and if we need to go up in the value chain, we need to attract investments. So why will somebody just invest money and then come up with an invention which cannot be, where they are not getting any protection? You see, this is a business decision. You are spending a lot of money and you are coming up with an invention, and if you are not getting protection for it, it's a problem. So we need to decide where we need to be in, say, 10-15 years down the line, and then accordingly calibrate and recalibrate. This should not be there should not be any fixed calibration, which should always, of course, as situation changes, we can recalibrate. And as far as the informal sector is concerned, we need to come up with some policy solutions. As I said earlier, there is a lot of hidden talent out there in the informal sector, the grassroots innovations. See, in my childhood, I've seen, you just see the case of coconut climbers. Now they use that machine. Before there was no machine. You see how it has made the life easier and how you are attracting people to this sector. So there are problems out there, and we have to solve the problem. See, nobody else will come, and we should not even think like that. They will come and address our problems. The diseases in the developing world, say malaria or others, you don't expect these companies in the Western world to invest on it. You can't blame them for that. We have to take care of our interests. Now, as far as the informal sector is concerned, we should deliberate. It's not an easy question to answer. I wish Shamnath was alive, because this is something which was close to his heart. He is somebody he was somebody who worked on the grassroots and was passionate about it. But we have talent here who can think about it, but of course we need the political executive also to be aware of this. So that is my answer to this question.
So the next question is put in by Ms. Atira. The question is, recent cases, example Farid Alani, indicate that we may be focusing on building a conducive environment for patenting upcoming technology like blockchain. Considering the fact that this would benefit external players much more than domestic ones, what model of IP ecosystem would you suggest for India to achieve optimal technological development?
See, the thing is, I know just to convey my argument, in the one argument which is often played by the generic pharmaceutical sector is the human rights angle. So whenever they are talking about, we talk about recalibrating the patent system, they will talk about human rights. It's a convenient card to play that this will only benefit the external players. Well, see, everybody is entitled to his or her view, and we can agree to disagree. But let's at least come together and then discuss about it. That's why I said, these are not things which after this talk something will happen. I am not saying that, but at least let's start talking about it. But one thing I can say, if we are allowing the system to continue like this, it's going to be, I will say, tragic. That's all.
So the next question is put in by Mr. Siddharth Jain. Please explain the improvement in innovation index of India compared to other countries which service current state of our economy, downgrading.
Index, I'm not going to understand, but I think this was already addressed from, as I said earlier, we are miles behind as far as coming up with new drugs are concerned. And now in the 5G, as far as telecommunication sector is concerned, Reliance has made a public declaration that it has, it has come up with 5G technology, but we don't know yet. The details are awaited. But as of now, the fact remains that the most of the standard essential patents which we are using in our mobile phones, they are coming from Ericsson, Qualcomm, Nokia, not from Indian companies. So it's all foreign-based companies who are at the top of the value chain. Even in the software sector, you see, we are talking about a robust software industry consisting of Infosys, Wipro, and all. But even they are, even though they have come up with some of their new products, even they are, I don't think they are at the top of the value chain. If they were at the top of the value chain, why didn't they come up with Zoom or the thing which we are using now, the Microsoft Teams? The same thing goes there as well. See, this is the thing is, it's a kind of a complacency. Once you are in a system where you are making good money is coming in, then why should you change the system? Because this is a realm where risks are to be taken. But unless and until you go up the ladder, the people, it's basically a trickle-down effect. Unless and until these companies go up the value chain, the people at the bottom will not get benefited. I'm talking about within the system within India. So this is not a thing which I think we should be satisfied with the present situation. I mean, as I just mentioned, the softwares we are using, we are using Microsoft Windows, Microsoft Teams, and just consider that the people who are in the top management of these companies are Indians. Satya Nadella is the CEO of Microsoft. Sundar Pichai is the CEO of Google. So it's not that even here in informal talks, these people tell me that you Indians are very smart because I think they see these names in the newspaper, so they are aware that these Indians are at the top of the are in the top management. But it's not getting translated. You see what I'm saying? We have good quality, highly resourceful people, but India unfortunately has not been able to translate it for its own benefit. This is, as I said earlier, this is something where we can adopt. We can, if we want, we can adopt the Ostrich Policy, which means pretending that everything is fine. See, this term came from the supposed habit of ostriches to bury their heads when they face danger. So apparently, but it has been proved wrong. But apparently, say if a lion is chasing an ostrich and it feels that it cannot get away, what it tries to do is it buries its head in the sand and pretend that there is no danger. So that is the Ostrich Policy, but it's a policy call we have to take. It's a call we have to take. Yeah.
So next question is put in by Ms. Simi Taragan from 9th semester BA LLB of Margaret College of Law. When we bring about patents, will that not be a violation of human rights? In the sense, intellectual itself speaks of thoughts, ideas, and two or more people can think on same lines while being far apart from others. So would it not be a violation of one individual alone is provided the patent over an idea?
See, there needs to be a balancing. Somebody is coming up with an idea, is investing a lot and coming up with a product. Say 1 crore rupees is invested on coming up with a product, and tomorrow you are finding it being usurped by somebody else. How will you feel? Will you invest? I think we should look at it from a more practical perspective. I don't think anybody will be interested in spending their time and money if we are allowing IP to be overridden by human rights. See, what we need is balancing. We need to factor in all these aspects when we are designing a system. I think from a Kerala perspective, of course, we should definitely do it. Otherwise, there are a lot of Keralites who are in the senior management. In fact, I forgot his name, but I know one Malayali who is, I think, in the top 10 of the management of Google. So we have some really smart people out there who will be willing to do it. I mean, because Kerala, for that matter, since we are talking this college is based in Kerala, we can actually think as to how we can, how Kerala can be an interesting, an attractive place post-COVID. As I said earlier, never waste a crisis. If we want to, this will mean a lot of opportunities for our youth and all. But if we are only talking about human rights and everything, and then nobody will invest. I think, yeah, that's my answer.
So the next question came in from Unful second year LLB student from Al Amin College, Shornur. What actually is the barrier for innovation in India? We have a lot of technical workforce in India. Why is India still back in innovation?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. See, it's again the mindset. One thing is the mindset, because let me just get back to my school days. When I graduated after my 12th, everybody was talking about medicine or engineering. I was the only one to go for law. I don't recall anybody talking about, doing a graduation in pure science or, I mean physics, chemistry, or mathematics, or say even or economics out of sheer interest. one thing is our mindset, because we are maybe we are, it's not that we are not creative enough, but our system is such that we are thinking always in conventional lines. And the second is, I mean, the intervention from the government, from the side of the government, can be far, far better. See, in my father's times, I know that, I'm being very candid. I know that at that point of time, getting a job in the government was something which was considered to be the best thing that can happen. And if that not, people were going abroad to the Gulf and all. And even today, you see, is there any change in this? Even for an average Malayali or for an average Indian, it is about getting a job in the government. But that is not simply going to happen, because government cannot provide employment for all the people. We need a thriving private sector as well. For that, and technology is the next. That is the next stage. You need to bring in these companies. It's for us too. I mean, I am just placing some thoughts before you. This should not be the receipt. Even if 1970s and 1980s we were talking about government sector jobs, I can understand, because it was 30-40 years after independence, after we became republic. But even after 70 years, if we are still talking only about government sector jobs, it's a problem. It affects us. It affects us. That's what I said. There will be people. I know there will be people who will disagree with what I am saying, but that's okay. In a democracy, we can always agree to disagree, and that is how it should be. But all I want to do by this talk is to place some thoughts before you. Just sit back and please think about these things, because these are the real relevant issues which are germane for our country and also for us.
So the next question is put in by Ms. Atira. How far do you think the national IP policy of a country contributes to the growth of innovation? National IP policy, India being a case in point, do you think we are on the right track?
No, definitely not. I mean, in blunt terms, the present IP policy that the government has is utter rubbish. I mean, I don't mind saying that. I don't want to get into technicalities and all, but it's utter rubbish. Shamnad, the IP draft policy which I shared, it was prepared by Shamnad and Yogesh. The government unceremoniously just rejected it and then constituted a new committee. And you read the new committee, I don't understand. They are talking about creating creativity in schools as if you can just instill creativity by teaching a course in schools. It's utter rubbish. That's what happens. That is the problem in India. There is no strong academia, policy making, and lawmaking. That talking about that linkages is pretty fragile in India. You need strong public sector institutions which do quality research in these areas to give solutions. As of now in India, we have some private organizations which are doing good research. One example is the Vidhi Center for Law and Policy. But you cannot leave these tasks to private sector organizations. These are things where public sector should also play a key role. Can you name one law university? I mean, even take the case of national law schools and look at the research outputs. It's not good. I mean, you're basically allowing these people to just dictate terms on their own. The new IP policy in India what India has is utter rubbish. I have no qualms in stating that. It does not factor in these aspects in a holistic manner. I wish that we can never do away with the importance of educational institutions in this regard. They can come up with there should be if India needs to grow, there should be a strong academia, policy making, and practice linkage. See, in US or say in any of these countries, it may come across as a comment which is slightly off the mark, but even then, say a judge delivers an incorrect judgment. In US, the next month you will see a law review article criticizing the judgment. These are the problems in it. So the academia acts as a strong check against the excesses of judiciary. Now in India, now in Delhi, you will find there are some people who write, and there is live law or some other, but I'm talking about academic journals. I haven't seen such articles from Kerala or any other state. So basically, what the judge decides is final. There is no check against what the excesses of judiciary. See, nobody is to be glorified. It doesn't matter. Judges are also human beings. So the role of academia is to act as an effective check against the excesses of judiciary and policy making. I'm talking about legal academia. We don't have a robust system in this regard. The next question, if there is.
So we are getting a lot of questions, but due to lack of time, we are forced to wind up the session.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I'd like to express a few words of gratitude. I'd like to thank our distinguished speaker, Mr. Mathews P. George, for taking time out of his schedule to speak to us. It was very encouraging and enlightening session, sir. Your remarks on IP is only a means to an end, and how patability has brought a sense of complacency, lack of quality data to diagnose problems with the lack of innovation ecosystem have surely made us gain a better understanding about where India stands on IPR and its innovation. I thank our director, Reverend Dr. Koshi Isaac Pundamotil, and our principal, Professor Dr. John PC, for their expert and able guidance and for their constant support. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Shama George Mathew, Ms. Ria Susan John, Mr. Binulal Vivi, and all the faculty members for their hard work and continuous supervision all throughout. Finally, thanks to all the participants for attending this webinar. Hope to see you all soon in the upcoming webinars. Thank you.